Hello and welcome to Screen Source. Today we are doing an Isle of Dogs movie review. We all went and saw this last week.
Yeah.
Even though it came out, I think, like internationally and on like wide scale, wide release.
It was kind of weird, huh?
2 Wednesdays ago.
Yeah. 2 Wednesdays ago. Yeah. It
Yes.
just wasn't. It was limited release.
It was limited and
Albuquerque.
yeah. Anyways, we saw it. I think that's what we're all getting at. And we want to talk about it a little bit because it was, I guess we could say up top, it was pretty fantastic.
It was phenomenal.
It was pretty fantastic,
I loved
Mr.
it.
Fox.
Yeah.
We're right here. We're right here.
Yep.
So where do we start? I kind of like the idea of starting of like, what did you guys expect prior to going to this, and how did that change?
I wasn't expecting anything less than something amazing.
Less than Anderson?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Less Anderson.
Yep.
This is gonna be a punful episode.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, more Anderson is what I want. Yeah.
I was expecting it to be great, and it was great. So I'm very happy with this movie.
Jessica,
It was so fantastic.
Yeah. Yes, it was.
you had a good time.
Yeah, I really did have a good time, and I expected
Get on the mic.
I expected everything from a Wes Anderson film.
Okay.
So,
Fantastic Mr. Fox is my favorite Anderson film. I don't think this beat it. I thought maybe it would. After the film, it didn't end up beating it. Spoiler alert for me. I will say I honestly thought it was going to be funnier. Did any of you guys get that? I'm not saying it wasn't funny. For sure, it was funny, but I thought it was going to be funnier.
I was surprised by the fact that it was saying a lot of things that were very political. And I do feel like Wes Anderson this is sort of a typical thing with him. He does like have really funny parts in his movie, but he also is very like cognizant that he wants people to see this particular message that he's trying to get across. And I think in this, it's very political. I appreciated it. I thought it was a really good message, and I thought it was funny. But you're right; it wasn't maybe as funny as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I was more so intrigued by every move that they were making, and all of the stop motion was just so beautiful.
Yeah.
The parts that I found the most funny were when, I don't know, it was just little things that they snuck in, like characters in the corner of the screen, like staring at the audience.
Yeah.
What is this guy doing?
Yeah.
He does that a lot. He's like very subtle with his humor.
And it's not so much in the dialogue. I feel like it's just with the weird animation that's going on.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I want to agree with that fully, but I will say like he is very dialogue driven.
well, his style of animation is very distinctive, and it's just like for shot, it's stagnant. But when he really moves, it actually makes a lot more. It makes a good, beautiful picture of it. The shots are actually well composed, and you can see every single detail. He's meticulous in detail.
That hair looks so real. It is crazy.
From what I understand, he was never really on set. I think he remotely got this movie done.
Yeah.
And harkening back to kind of what you were talking about, like the political aspects of this film, they started filming this before Trump was president. And he said this is just like reoccurring themes in history and politics. And so he's like, it wasn't a surprise that this actually hit home to the current state that we're living in.
Yeah.
Somebody I think Bond pointed out to me that like it was funny that that the main kind of boy character that we're following is the Japanese one and everybody else is white. But Wes Anderson is generally like a white person. He has a lot of white people that like white males particularly in his films.
Yeah. He does have a lot of like Japanese actors though in
this movie.
Some of the voices.
Yes. Yes.
Which is cool. And the part that I thought the message that I thought it was trying to get across was all tied in with like how all the Japanese there were no subtitles for it. Like they were just speaking Japanese, and you just had to kind of kind of see what their body language was, and like you always got what was going on. Like it's not like you needed the subtitles to understand what was happening. And I think that's a really good point about like just humanity in general. Like we feel like we need to know each other's language in order to understand each other, but we don't. We're all human. We all communicate in different ways, and we don't need language to communicate. We can communicate in so many different ways. So I really like that. I appreciated that a lot.
A quiet place.
Yeah. and then I thought, obviously the message was, if we have immigrants or people that are different, and let's just create something wrong with them so that we can deport them and take them away and segregate them from everyone else. And, I think that was kind of the message here, which such a good message, that like we should treat everyone equally. And like, they literally created this like dog, what was it called? Dog flu or something.
Right. Yeah.
And it wasn't even real. I mean, they just did it to get rid of the dogs because they didn't like dogs. And it's like, that's what's happening right now in society. It's really sad.
Yeah.
So,
it's interesting because they weren't trivializing it, but it almost felt like it was, because it was about dogs, right? And so you almost wanted to laugh at like the absurdity that they...
Right. And then they all had cats, like, because they loved cats.
Yeah.
It was just,
it was funny.
It's just funny. The assumptions we make about people, and how they're often very wrong. So
he had mentioned, I was watching an interview with Wes Anderson. He had talked about why he put some of the characters that he had in the movie, and he says they were very blatantly like Greta Gerwig's character Tracy Walker, the young white woman who was with the freckles and the big
She
fro.
was so cute.
Yeah, and I didn't realize it was Greta Gerwig till later, which is awesome.
her voice is pretty distinctive. I kind of knew right away that it was her. And
But
I
he
was
said
like, yes.
very blatantly, like pretty much the reason that character was in the movie is so you would understand what these kids were doing in this classroom, and like how they could help with the uprising of getting the dogs off of that island finally. And then the person that was translating, that was sitting like behind the boards, and she was always, you guys know what I'm talking about? The Asian woman.
That was Frances McDormand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And he said, he's like, I honestly don't even know who that translator was for. He's like, I think it was just for the audience. Like that wasn't like for the movie at all, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like he built it for us. So it's really interesting that like he just does stuff because he's like, this is what works and this is how you're supposed to do it. And sometimes he's more on the nose than not. Did you guys have like favorite parts or scenes from the film? Or characters or?
I loved the scene where Kobayashi, is that his name? The
I think so. That sounds right.
He just got out of like the little bath, and he has this like Yukasa tattoo cat on his
A giant cat. That was awesome.
It was so funny.
His whole body just disturbed me.
Yeah, it was very disturbing.
Tiny little legs.
Yeah, I loved when they were going through where the pack of dogs was going through that like incinerator. And it was just like it was barely missing them every time. It was like these like big
Were you
hands
so
that
surprised
were like,
about that?
Yeah.
Were you just like, oh no.
They're dead.
I thought they were dead.
I kind of like that they did that. Yeah.
Yeah,
And they just
that was
stopped it like
great.
that in mid-movie. I'm just like,
Oh yeah.
oh
Yeah.
God.
If this thing was still working, we'd totally be dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he said. If this thing was still working, we totally did. That was a good line.
Yeah.
I think maybe mine, at least for the humor, was the more towards the beginning when they were looking at the food and they were like growling at each other, the two different packs of dogs.
That was funny.
And then they were naming everything that was inside of it.
Yeah.
And then one of them said, I don't remember who said, but one of them said like, yeah, it's worth it. And then they started fighting.
It was like maggot covered, like old food.
Yeah,
And they're just
tuna.
like, it's worth it.
That was good.
It was great.
I think my favorite part was just because I'm one of those artists that kind of just takes its time, where they just, it's when they're animating the fish being sashimied and just being prepared, just that sort of simple part of it, because it's just like, because I know what stop animation entails,
Mm-hmm.
weeks of work. So that kind of meticulous thing, I'm like, that must have took like a couple of
Forever,
days.
Yeah.
You felt sad for them.
I didn't feel sad for him, but I was like, that's some dedication work.
Yeah.
For
These
it.
people have, like, you have to have the utmost patience in order
Yeah.
to do something like this.
And I also read in I also watched in an interview where the animators, the trouble with animating was with the fur. So
I can see that, yeah.
because it's hard to deal with and it's hard to keep consistent. So
Right.
so the fur, when you see the wind going through the dog's fur, any type of that, it's actually very hard to do.
Okay.
I was wondering about that because a lot of their fur is like highly detailed with like all different types of paints and stuff, and I'm like, how are they making it look so soft and like flowy as
They did such a
well?
good
It looks
job.
so good.
Yeah,
I
it's-
was so impressed.
I really enjoyed these fight scenes
With the cotton.
with the cotton. That was such a good. I don't know that I've seen that before as a choice, and it wasn't necessarily even the fight scenes. Just anytime there was like dust
Or explosions.
or explosions,
Yeah.
there's always like these like squiggly cotton that would
It
dissipate.
reminds me of like Charlie Brown, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
You're always
so
reminded that they're
cute.
just dolls, but and just how like how otherworldly and just like storybook-esque it is.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the plot? Do you guys have problems with it? Do you guys enjoy it?
That was a good plot.
There was one part where it was really interesting because I knew that the character that Spots. Oh, I don't want to give away anything.
No. It was a spoiler review, so
spoiler
please
review.
don't. Yeah.
Spoilers. Okay. So when they were like saying how Spots was dead and everything, I was just like, no, there's no way. But then I also thought, well, this is Wes Anderson, so he can do anything.
Sure. Yeah.
So
Yeah. He's always interesting in that way. I thought I was confused for a second when the dog is finally washed up, and he looks like Spots.
was it Spots or Spots?
Spots. Yeah, and then we realized that they're brothers, which was super cool. I will say it felt a little forced when Spots finally meets. God, what's the name of the Chief? Thank you.
Duke.
When Spots finally meets Chief, and
Chief, yeah.
it
Duke is
very
the name.
quickly explains. Oh yeah, what year were you born? Oh yeah, we're brothers. It was almost like too quick and too, what's the word I'm looking for, where it's like over explanation.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
That was just like one little thing out of an entirely great film.
But to be fair though, I think that sometimes Wes Anderson was trying to like make it seem like this is how dogs are. They're very nonchalant about a lot of things. And it really tried to like focus on how dogs are like different than humans. And I really liked the fact that at the beginning they were like, we have translated their barks
Yeah,
into English.
that was so good. This is why we're able to have Bryan Cranston in this film.
Right.
Yeah.
It was so good.
I agree
yeah.
with the nonchalance.
Yeah.
Though, like, because they were always voting on what to do.
Yeah.
They're like,
Yeah, it was always a Democratic vote.
yeah.
I kind of like that.
It always like trying to, it was funny because the character that was always trying to like be the leader, Chief is always telling him like, you're not the leader. We're all leaders. We have to vote.
But
This
then
is
he's
equal.
the
But then he's the leader. Yeah.
That was one of those like reoccurring. One of my other favorite reoccurring jokes was the sneeze. It was very like quick. They did it at the beginning, and they kept bringing it back for no reason.
There's in is it Howl's Moving Castle? That dog is constantly sneezing and wheezing.
Oh my god, and that dog is so cute
And it's
too.
always just like a scene of him.
yeah.
I loved how they referred to like the Oracle. It's like she has visions. Goes to the TV.
Yeah. Oh god, that is such a good joke. I love it.
And it's a little pug. It's like the perfect dog to choose.
Yeah,
for, the perfect breed of dog to choose for like someone that like is all knowing. It's like a pug. Oh, really?
Tilda Swinton was the perfect.
I
Tilda
know.
Swinton
I
is-
know.
yes.
Oh my god, that pug. So good.
Yeah, and yeah, you're right. Like they were always kind of reminding us that they were dogs
Yeah.
in certain ways.
Yeah.
But I like that because it was almost a switch between like these are high functioning animals. These are almost human like.
Human-like, yeah.
I mean that's kind of how we were translating it as much as we could. But
Right.
But then there was always like something like he was giving a big long speech and he's like flea. He's like, what? You got a flea on your nose, and he bites it off, or a tick, or I don't remember. Yeah, a tick.
You gotta take. Yeah.
I guess because you don't want to close your eyes and just like, oh, it's Bryan Cranston. Oh, it's these people. And
Yeah, honestly, that didn't happen for me. It was kind of nice.
I almost kind of played a game with myself. I was like, close your eyes and imagine this if there was like human actors in the same type of situation.
Live action.
Live action. And it works kind of time, but then you get reminded it's the dogs again. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
So it doesn't draw you back to it. And
Yeah.
it's actually really fun to play.
Interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah.
have thought about that. I wonder if there were. So, from what I understand, Wes Anderson had this idea when he was in Japan, and he actually saw a sign that said "Isle of Dogs," and he's like, "What is that?" And apparently, it was this like area that that somebody in royalty in Japan had made, and it was like their dogs area or something to that extent. I don't think it was a bunch of dogs, but I think it was like a dog. And so no, I know he wasn't in Japan, so it was non-Asiatic, but he saw this sign or whatever, and then he was talking to these other people that helped him write the movie, and they had brought up like, hey, we've been trying to do like a Japanese theme thing, so what if we kind of married these things together and saw it happen? And thus was Isle of Dogs. Yes. How did this I had said earlier that this doesn't stand up to Fantastic Mr. Fox, although I want to go back and rewatch that now to kind of do a more direct comparison because it's been a while. How did this stand up to other Wes Anderson films for you guys? For you gals?
I thought it was really good. I actually think it might. I don't think it's my favorite, but I think it's really high up there. Like it's,
Do you have a
it's
favorite?
Really good. Oh yeah, probably. I have to think about it.
Maddie?
Let me pull up a list here.
I thought it was on par with Fantastic Mr. Fox. I did like Moonrise Kingdom a
Okay.
little bit better. I don't know what else is on the list.
So let's
I
see.
know there's Grand Budapest Hotel.
I know you know all of them in the
I
back
know.
here. Yeah,
Royal,
sure.
Royal Tenenbaums, Life Aquatic, Rushmore, Darjeeling Limited, Bottle Rocket, Hotel Chevalier, which I really want to see. It has Natalie Portman in it.
He's done so many films.
Castello Cavalcanti, The Squid and the Whale.
Hotel Cavalier.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that, but like I don't remember much.
Yeah, I am a big fan of Rushmore and also Darjeeling Limited. Oh, but Life Aquatic's good too. Damn it, I can't. Oh my god.
Do you have a favorite?
Let's see. I think it's going to be either Grand Budapest or Moonrise Kingdom.
Okay.
So,
So this wasn't up there with those.
I think he actually got like he's on the same level when he does Fantastic Mr. Fox, because when you said like does he have the same humor, it's actually the same humor. It's that dry humor.
Sure.
That few adults kind of even get. Like there's a couple of chuckles in the film, like in the theater when I was watching this, but like I'm kind of like mentally like I can't wait for the adults to complain about this in Netflix because it happened in Fantastic Mr. Fox because they're like, oh, it's a kids film.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because we went to the theaters together and there was a bunch of
understand
kids.
anything about this. I mean, they would think it's cute because there's cute dogs, but
I kind of disagree. Like there's parts of it that they will probably appeal to it.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
It's a PG-13 film.
yeah.
PG-13 is not bad. Yeah. I think maybe like that's a good rating.
Like you can watch this film as a kid, like 10 or 12, and then kind of slowly progress, and it gets better
Because you understand more.
You understand it a lot more, and you actually get like you understand the kids a lot more better
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they act like adults.
Yeah.
The kids totally act like the adults, and the adults act like the kids.
Yeah. I will say, like, I think some of the dry humor would go over their head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This isn't like a
It's really like
slapstick.
anything though. It's like things that I've been watching my whole life, and then I go back as I get older, I start to understand more and more of the humor. And I'm like Clueless, for example. I love that movie, and I've loved that movie since I was like 10 years old. But I didn't understand any of it when I was growing up. And yet I would quote it all the time. And it's such an inappropriate movie for a 10-year-old to be watching. And now I understand everything, and it's so much better. So I think you're right. I think if kids can just watch it just for how pretty it is, and, you know.
Well, it's a dog and a boy movie.
Yeah,
So, like,
it's so cute. And that relationship is so great. So, yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't expect it to go the way it was going. I mean, I kind of had a feeling that Chief was going to be at the kind of the center of things, but then he started getting outcasted. So I thought maybe he was always going to be kind of the B story or the background character. I was wrong.
Yeah.
Turns out. Do we
Nutmeg.
love the owl? And
The owl is
Nutmeg?
great. The owl is so great. And then Nutmeg, her little tricks that she does. She's like, well, you have to imagine like the bowling ball.
And then it went
And then
like
the pins are on fire. Yeah, that was
honestly, I could watch this again right now. It was a really good time.
super fun.
Yeah. Do you guys have any final thoughts before we sign off?
go watch it.
Go watch it.
Definitely.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree. Make sure to go watch Wes Anderson's newest film, Isle of Dogs, in theaters.
And watch
now.
all of his old ones if you haven't watched
Yes,
them.
yes,
Please.
fantastic.
I'm
Mr.
planning
Fox.
on marathoning all the ones I haven't seen,
Let's
which
just
are
do that.
actually
Let's
quite
do
a
a marathon.
few. And he has some great ones. So
Yes.
yeah.
Anyways, make sure to tune in to Screen Source. We release videos every Sunday around 9-ish. So keep that in mind. Otherwise, we're on twitch.tv/Color Circuit Live most other days at 7 p.m. MT. I've been Dylan,
I've been Jessica.
I've been Madison.
I'm Francesca.
and we will see you guys soon. Thank you.